Hello, Shane.
G'day, Assistant Treasurer. Hello.
Everyone good? Okay. Okay, thanks for coming, everyone. I'm going to say a few things about our announcement today on cash and cheques. Then we'll hear from the Assistant Treasurer, and then I wanted to say a few things about the fortnight to come. First of all, I really wanted to thank Stephen for the absolute mountain of work that he does in our Treasury portfolio when it comes to the payment system. Our objective when it comes to payments is to modernise our financial system, but to do that in a way that doesn't leave people behind, to make sure that there's an ongoing role for cash, and to make sure that as we phase out cheques, we're doing that on a reasonable and longer run-up. And that's what today's announcements are all about. Now, we know that most people like to pay digitally, and we know the direction of travel is towards digital payments. But still something like 1.5 million Australians pay mostly with cash, and we want to make sure that people aren't left behind. And so today we're announcing that cash will be an ongoing feature of the economy on our watch. Now, we're making sure that people can pay cash for essentials if they want to and if they need to. You know, cash can be a really important lifeline. It can be an important backup. It gives people peace of mind and a sense of security, and that's why we are making it an ongoing feature of our economy, even as people make a range of choices about how they pay their bills and participate in our economy. What this means is that businesses selling essential items will have to accept cash, with some appropriate carve-outs for small businesses and with a particular emphasis on regional areas as well. Now, we've seen these sorts of mandates work in other parts of the world. We've seen them work in parts of the United States, and we're confident that we can make it work here as well. So we're making sure that people can continue to pay cash for essential items if they want to and if they need to. Essential items like petrol and groceries and at the pharmacy, that will give people the peace of mind that they need and deserve. 1.5 million Australians is not a small number of people who use cash for more than 80% of their payments, and so today we're making sure that people are not being left behind, that they have choices, even as we modernise the payment system. So let's hear from Stephen, and then a couple more things from me, and then over to you.
Thanks, Jim, and thanks for the great collegiate work we're doing in this area. I spent a lot of time in regional Australia. I spent a lot of time in senior citizens' halls around the country. And the one thing that comes up each and every time is older Australians, people from non-English speaking backgrounds, people in regional and rural Australia will say it's harder to get cash and it's harder to find places who'll accept it. What we're announcing today will guarantee the right to use cash. It'll guarantee the right to use cash for essential services, and we're particularly focused in those areas in regional and rural Australia. This is good, as Jim says, for the 1.5 million Australians who use cash for about 80% of their transactions, but it's good for the rest of us as well. We've all had that experience where we've loaded up the trolley, we've gone to the counter and the tap and go won't work. The system's down. And that sends a message to all of us that we need resilience in the system, we need a backup. And the fact that we maintain a capacity to use cash within the system is good for those, the 1.5 million Australians who are adamant that they want to continue to use cash, but it's good for the rest of us because it means we retain that muscle memory in our payment system to enable us to continue to use cash. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thanks very much, Stephen. So today a big announcement on cash and cheques. Last week was a very big week, announcing our productivity fund, next steps in our single front door, the PC inquiries into the 5 pillars of productivity. But this next parliamentary sitting fortnight is going to be even bigger. Our government will continue to pursue its legislative agenda in the Senate. I'll be hoping to introduce new legislation, for example, the production tax credits, as part of our Future Made in Australia agenda next week, if I can. A ministerial statement to the Parliament on Wednesday about the progress that Australians have made together when it comes to getting inflation down and wages up and rolling out cost of living help at the same time as we reform our economy for the future. We'll have more to say, Stephen and I, later in the week around superannuation and the retirement phase. We'll be hosting another investor roundtable on Friday, focused on housing and the energy transformation and other matters. And next Friday, Friday week, I'll be hosting the State and Territory Treasurers here for the Council of Federal Financial Relations as well. So it's going to be a massive fortnight in and around the Parliament. The government has a very full agenda that we're looking to progress through the Senate and outside the Parliament as well. And so there'll be a lot of activity, a lot of action over the course of the next couple of weeks. And with that, I'm happy to take some questions. We'll start down this way and we'll work our way that way.
A couple of questions. Are you doing anything to support access to cash where it's harder to access at the moment? And how will the mandate be enforced? Will there be penalties associated with it?
Yeah, so two great questions. First of all, our efforts to make sure that cash is available, particularly in regional areas, are complementary to what we are proposing here. So you know that we've been working closely with the banks, with Armaguard and others to make sure that there is the flow of cash in our communities. There are some difficult issues there that have had to be worked through, but people have been very collegiate about that, and those efforts are complementary with these efforts that we are talking about today. You know, we are under no illusions. You know, we know the direction of travel is towards digital, but we want to make sure that cash is available in communities and that people can pay for essentials with cash if they want to and if they need to. All of those efforts are complementary. When it comes to penalties, the main difference between what we're proposing today and some of the penalties that have been proposed elsewhere in the Parliament, Andrew G, who's done a lot of well-intentioned work, I think, in this area, our intention is to try and get as many businesses selling essentials to take cash as we can. That number's gone from 99% of businesses just before COVID to about 94% now. So a lot of businesses are still accepting cash. But we don't want to penalise small businesses. We want to find an appropriate way to carve out small businesses, to recognise regional pressures and other pressures, to make sure that the focus isn't on penalties, the focus is on making sure that the medium-sized and bigger businesses that sell essentials are taking cash. And so that's one of the major differences between the proposals in the Parliament and our proposal today. We have less of an emphasis on penalties, unlike the proposal put forward by Andrew. Katina.
Treasurer, on the production tax credits that you flagged earlier on radio, has there anything in the design phase of that changed what that looks like, or is it still the same time frame coming in 2028, still the same kind of scale of it? And why is it only if you can? Is there a risk that this might not actually be put up so we can see what's in it before the election?
Well, the if you can part of it is just recognising we've got a full legislative and parliamentary book. And, you know, I don't like to preempt the sequencing decisions taken by Tony Burke and other colleagues, but our intention, if we can, is to introduce those production tax credits into the Parliament. There have been some minor but not major tweaks to the PTC regime that we announced in the budget. That has been, I think, a very welcome consequence of the consultation that we've been doing. These production tax credits are going to be a game changer in our economy, very important to the West but to the whole national economy as well. And so we're looking forward to advancing that agenda. We need some clarity from our political opponents. They say that they're against them. Let's hear why. And this is one of a number of reasons, I think, that the approach taken by the Liberals and Nationals has been very anti-WA. And we'll see that when this legislation is presented to the Parliament.
What are some of those changes? Are you able to talk to any?
I'll make those clear in due course. Yeah, yourself. Yeah.
Are you concerned at all about a bump in prices if businesses are forced to carry cash when they don't currently? Because obviously carrying cash cost businesses more and it's normally factored into the ticket, but if it's not, I wonder if that will cause a bump.
Yeah, obviously we're very attentive to the issues around pricing and competition. You know, this is one of the ways we're looking to ease pressure on people, not add pressure to people's household budgets. The ACCC will obviously do their usual work in this regard. But don't forget as well, you know, what we're talking about here is a system where 94% of businesses are taking cash right now. We don't want to see the medium and bigger sized businesses vacate the field if they're selling essentials. We're prepared to be reasonable about it, and we don't anticipate the sorts of pricing behaviour that you're concerned about. We'll go Shane, and then Ben, and then Mark, and then T-Mac.
You've made clear that you focused on the stage 3 tax cuts and revamping them,
Yeah.
and not signalled a major personal tax reform leading into the next election. The Parliamentary Budget Office analysis that's come out showing that bracket creep is going to cost taxpayers about $500 billion over the next decade, starting from next year. Does that mean that you have to start thinking about another round of tax cuts? Otherwise, you are going to have the highest average tax rates for people since the mid-80s.
Well, that PBO analysis does assume, I think bravely, that there'll be no changes to the income tax system for a decade. And often respectfully, the flaw in that sort of analysis is that assumption. You know, it would be a rare period in Australian taxation for there not to be income tax changes over a full decade. And we should not lightly dismiss the ways that we are returning bracket creep with the changes we made and the tax cuts that we are providing. You know, we cut 2 rates and lifted 2 thresholds. And that recognises there's more than one way to return bracket creep in our tax system, and we're doing it in a way which is best for participation and make sure that every taxpayer gets a tax cut, not just some taxpayers getting a tax cut. And they're flowing in the economy right now, as you know. So bracket creep is an ongoing concern of governments. People shouldn't expect us to take a big new income tax cut policy to the 2025 election. But the tax cuts that we put in place from the 1st of July are rolling out right now. They are an important way that we're helping people with the cost of living, getting inflation down, getting wages up, rolling out tax cuts and cost of living help. These are some of the reasons why and how we're taking some of the pressure off people who are doing it tough.
Treasurer, just following up on Katina's question, there was some suggestion from Minister Madeleine King earlier that you may bring forward those tax credits just given the increasingly difficult situation facing critical minerals producers across Australia for a range of global reasons. Has that been considered, and is that something you might do?
Oh, we're working closely with Madeleine King, terrific resources minister. We've been working very closely with her, and the tweaks that we've made to the proposal will be clear when we present the legislation to the Parliament. Mark, then Tom.
Treasurer, on the framing of the MyIFO in a few weeks, is that shaping just as a traditional MyIFO, or are we looking more of a mini budget that a Prime Minister might look to launch an election campaign off? Will there be any
I've never seen anyone so excited about a mid-year budget update.
It's a very exciting time,
yeah.
Particularly if it's got things in there for people who are doing it tough at the moment, Treasurer.
Yeah.
So could there be more cost of living relief in this document?
Well, the mid-year budget update will be an opportunity to update our forecasts and to make sure that we're budgeting for our priorities. People shouldn't assume some kind of spend-a-thon in the mid-year budget update. That's very clear. Nor should they expect that, frankly, in the budget in March. You know, if there's a defining feature of our economic management, it's responsibility. And people shouldn't anticipate the mid-year update or the budget to be some kind of free-for-all of public spending. There will be inevitably new measures that we tally up in mid-year budget updates, but you shouldn't anticipate it will be something that looks like a mini budget or something like that. Tom, then Tom.
Thanks, Treasurer. On the regional bank levy, is it fair to slug digital...
Where's Keogh? He's on TV.
Is it fair enough to slug digital-only banks whose business model has been designed not to have branches like the traditional Big Four, or is including banks like ING and Macquarie recognition that they're cutting into traditional mortgage businesses from the big banks anyway?
Yeah, can I just make a few kind of general observations about that, and then I'll obviously get to a bit closer to the specifics of your question. This is a government that governs for the whole country, and we take our responsibilities to regional areas really seriously. And it's been evident to us for some time, and I commend Stephen for his work here, that the withdrawal of services in the bush is a major concern to us because it's a major challenge for a lot of Australians. And so it should surprise no one that we regularly engage with the banks and others on really important issues and challenges like this. And it would be unusual, frankly, if we weren't doing that, given the nature of the challenge and the magnitude of the challenge. We haven't come to a concluded view on any of these issues. We've done our best to engage and consult confidentially on some of these matters. It's not especially troubling to us that some of that consultation has found its way into the public domain, including in your paper. But I think Australians everywhere, and especially Australians in the bush, would expect us to engage with the banks to make sure that the appropriate level of service is being delivered. On the specifics of your question and some of the speculation that we've read about in the paper, again, we haven't come to a concluded view. We try and engage respectfully and in a consultative way with the banks to let them in on the sorts of things that we might be considering so that we can deliver for more people in more parts of Australia, and that's all this is. Tom.
Treasurer,
Then we'll go to the
the
other
government has a few bills stalled in the Senate at present. The housing bills, of course, help to buy.
I noticed that too.
The environment bills as well to set up the new EPA. The Greens have come forward with some new offers to pass those bills. What do you make of those offers, and should we expect deals with the Greens on a range of fronts over the next couple of weeks to try and get a few things through?
Oh, we engage respectfully with the Greens and with others in the Senate and in the House. We know that we don't have a majority in the Senate, and so we play the cards we're dealt. We try and do the best we can to pass as much of our agenda as we can. You know, I say to the Greens, if you want more investment in housing, you've got to vote for it. You know, I say to the Greens, stop teaming up with the Liberals and Nationals to prevent more investment in housing, or to prevent more rental properties being built, or prevent it being easier for people to get a toehold in the housing market. You know, we've got a broad, ambitious housing agenda. It's a credit to Claire O'Neill and to Julie Collins before her and the Prime Minister for his leadership. We want to get cracking on this investment in housing. We engage respectfully, we negotiate where we have to, and people should expect to see more of that over the course of the next couple of weeks. I think I said I'd go up the back. Why don't we go U4 and finish on Jack, and then we're probably done.
Alan Jones this morning has been arrested in Sydney by the Sex Crimes Squad. I just wanted to get your reaction, given over the generations his close proximity to power, especially in this building.
Yeah, look, I've got to be honest with you, I just saw it on social media as we were walking here, and so my working assumption is that there's a lot of legal processes to go through, and therefore you'd understand that it would be unwise and inappropriate for me to comment. I've seen the stories, but I don't know any of the details. Tom.
Stephen, who's looking quite lonely. I'm really not. I just want to give you a go as well. Last week, I believe you signed a MOU with the Cook Islands when it comes to superannuation transfers. Are you looking at that with the other Pacific Island nations? Are we looking to expand schemes like that? And then, Treasurer, just on the same Pacific kind of banking issue, when it comes to dealings with ANZ, is underwriting, like what kind of, I guess, measures are we looking at or speaking about? Are we going to put any direct cash injections into keeping branches open? We're looking at underwriting as opposed to financial contributions?
Yeah, sure. So our partnership with our Pacific Island nations is extensive and enduring and critically important to us. Delighted to be able to sign and seal the deal with the Cook Islands. Some unique things about the Cook Islands and their people. They're also citizens of New Zealand. We have a superannuation agreement with New Zealand which wasn't flowing through to the people of Cook Islands, and in effect what that deal does is equalise the arrangements between New Zealand and the Cook Island. Now, Of course, we've had representations from other Pacific Island leaders. We're working through those representations respectfully. Our priority has been to work with our Pacific Island nations over the last 2 years to ensure that we can secure correspondent banking in the Pacific, and we're making tremendous progress in that area. But of course we'll work through the other issues in relation to superannuation. The Pacific Island Labour Mobility Agreement means that we've got a fantastic workforce arrangement going between ourselves and our Pacific Island brothers and sisters. Pat Conroy's done an amazing job in cementing and building that up. So there will be a larger Pacific Island workforce here in Australia, and of course one of the great features of them working in Australia is they get exactly the same wages and conditions as you would if you're an Australian resident. That includes superannuation. We want to ensure that that's working for both countries.
Just on the ANZ progress, the ANZ's been terrific engaging with us on maintaining a presence in the Pacific. We've been working very closely with them and with a couple of the other major Australian banks as well. We're very grateful to the Australian banks for the way that they've engaged with us and recognised our national interest here. So there's been very important progress made with ANZ. I flagged that, I think, last week in a speech, maybe last Monday. We'll have more to say about the specifics of that arrangement in due course. Go to yourself and then Jack.
Treasurer and perhaps Stephen. Cash obviously plays an important role for some people in some communities, but I guess looking at the production side of things, is there a case for winding back some of the smaller value coins, like the 5-cent coin, which I think in 2022 cost about 12 cents to produce, or at least to make these coins a bit cheaper. Or at least to kind of make the process or the procedure of like creating these coins a bit cheaper.
Yeah. This is something that Andrew Lee thinks about a lot. He has carriage in our team for the mint and the arrangements around currency. I'd say that all jokes aside. And so he thinks about this a bit. The appropriate denominations, obviously, they evolve over time, and we keep it under constant review. Jack, lots of pressure, mate. Last question.
No, I was just going to follow up with Shane's question about income tax cuts. Last week, when Dutton sort of walked back his commitment for income tax cuts for high earners, he talked about the fact that the budget really can't afford them right now. What's your view of that? Is another round of income tax cuts going in the next term of government? Would the budget be actually able to afford more tax cuts at that time?
Well, obviously, from budget to budget, we try and do the best we can for people, recognising the pretty substantial fiscal constraints that we have. And that would be our approach in every budget, is to make sure that we're striking the right balances there, providing cost of living relief, putting downward pressure on inflation, fixing the budget, investing in the future. We've made clear those are our priorities. We have absolutely no idea what the coalition's priorities are. Susan Lee said that they would wind back the tax cuts. Angus Taylor said he would revamp stage 3 of the election. Peter Dutton says they might not. We are rounding the turn here at the very end of a 3-year parliamentary term. We're in the last 6th of a 3-year parliamentary term, and these characters still don't have any costed or credible or coherent policies. Now, when it comes to the government, you know what our priority is: rolling out cost of living relief, getting inflation down, getting wages up, investing in the future. Those are our priorities. We have no idea what they're on about when it comes to the economy, and that's why they are such an unacceptable risk to household budgets. Peter Dutton has this kind of angry and risky recklessness which puts household budgets at risk. They've opposed our cost of living help. They won't tell us what they'll do with the tax cuts. They won't tell us what their $315 billion in cuts means for Medicare or housing. We know that Peter Dutton went after Medicare last time he was in office. We know that they hate wage increases. So ordinary Australians will go backwards in tangible ways if we hand the keys to Peter Dutton and Angus Taylor, who won't come clean on their plans, whether it's on income tax or in other areas as well. Thanks very much. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks.